Welcome back to the Live to Grind podcast show. I'm Brendan C. Adams, and today we're sitting here with Dan Gomer. How's it going, buddy?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you. It's been fun the last couple days.
Yeah.
Filming and going through a commercial, which I'm so excited to have it go out to the public.
It's going to be awesome.
The Dollar Shave kind of example, which I'll talk about before, asking some questions on it. You saw the Dollar Shave Club commercial, like, let's do a real estate one around it.
Yeah.
So we did that, did a video series. Today I want to jump into some real estate, but also behind the scenes of just you, who you are.
Yeah.
First, start off, where did you grow up? What were you like as a kid?
Well, I grew up in Arvada, Colorado, so just a suburb of Denver. And you know, as a kid, we talked about this in the show. I was just kind of a goofy kid that just beat to my own drummer, you know.
Yeah.
And my parents never told me, like, you know, that's not totally socially acceptable. Like, you should dress like this, or, you know, you should, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of everybody knew who I was, like me or not. Everybody knew who I was. I was kind of a big fish in a small pond that didn't really fit in the pond.
You were like this awkward kid that was really tall and like wore weird clothes.
Yeah, my nickname was a human weed or garbage disposal, because I would just eat and just grow, you know. But you know, I loved where I grew up. Arvada was and Colorado in general is just a fantastic place to grow up. You know, there's just so many good people here.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a small community. It's growing, but I feel like I grew up in a little city. You know.
So growing up, what was it like just as a kid? Did you growing up realize like, hey, one day I want to go sell real estate or go do something in business? Like, did you have big aspirations to be somebody one day, or is it just like you were just living for the teenage years?
Well, I don't know. I mean, doesn't everybody think like, I want to be a professional baseball player, or I want to be you know what I mean? Like,
careful what you wish for.
Right. So, you know, I always had those kinds of thoughts in my head, like I want to be this or that or whatever. But to be totally honest, when I graduated high school, I was pretty much like, you know what, you want to do all these amazing things, but you've never accomplished crap, so you're probably never going to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, I went to school to be a teacher. I graduated, I became a teacher. I did that for 7 years. And I think one day something just clicked in me where I was like, this isn't working. You know, this isn't making you happy. You're not content. You're not going after what it is that you really want to do. And so I decided that it was time for a change. I spent the last 2 to 3 years that I was teaching, I would go and I would talk to people, and I would just ask them, what do you do for a living? And they would tell me. I'd say, okay, you know, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? And then I would visualize myself in that job. And because I was searching, you know, and then all of a sudden one day I hired a business therapist to help me figure out what the hell I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And the night before I went to go see her, I'm laying in bed and I'm like, real estate, like what,
Yeah.
you know, how have I not run into a real estate agent in all of these years to ask these questions to? And that was it. I went into that lady and I'm like, we don't need to do this. I'm good.
You knew what you needed.
Yeah. And, you know, I've never looked back. Got into the fix and flip world and did that for a few years, and then just kind of leveraged my knowledge to help other people, you know, do their stuff.
So let's go back. So when you were a teacher and before you knew real estate, what was going through your mind? Because a lot of people, even people, listeners, they are in this transition in their life, whether they're working a 9 to 5 and they want to go do their own endeavor. What was going through your mind, and what made you make that actual leap? Like, what was the thing that, okay, I'm going to do it?
Yeah. Okay. So towards the end of my teaching career, and when I finally decided I had to make a change, I would show up to work and I was tired every day. Every day I was just tired and I didn't want to be there, and that was my cue that it's time to change something. You know, I was drinking 5-hour energies to stay awake during the day, and I'm like, this is not good. And so there was a moment there when I was teaching, when I was drinking a 5-hour energy, and I'm like, okay, time for a change. I don't want to live my life like this. And at that point I didn't know what I was going to do yet. And even when I got into real estate and I started doing that, there was moment after moment after moment of just feeling like a failure. Like, I let my family down. What am I doing? You know, I'm not producing. I'm not where I want to be. I'm not, you know, there's a lot of that that goes into it. And I think one day I realized that I didn't want to live my life like that either. You know, if I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to support my family in other ways. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to do everything that I can to support them in a financial.
And enjoy what you're doing to wake up and be energized and not have to have 5-hour energies all day.
Exactly.
So did you, when you left, because some people, did you have it figured out? Like, hey, I'm going to go do real estate. Did you have that lined up, or did you just leave and then you went and figured it out?
I had it lined up. I got together with a buddy who kind of taught me how to do the fix and flip thing.
Yep.
You know, who taught me, like, this is what you do to the house. This is what you don't do. Here's where your money's should be spent, you know, that kind of stuff. So I had all that lined up prior to me leaving. But as soon as teaching was done, I bought my first property. I got a loan from my in-laws, bought my first property, and away we
started
went.
from there. So doing the fix and flip, what was the biggest flop you had? What happened? What did you learn from it?
I learned that fix and flips are very challenging. You know,
Why?
My toughest project, because there's so much that's out of your control. My toughest project in terms of, you know, from a financial standpoint, I lost about 30 grand.
Yeah.
And working for 3 months to lose 30 grand, that's tough. That's you have a few takeaways from something like that, you know. And I learned that there's just so many things that you can't control in that environment. And ultimately, that was one of my last projects where I was like, all right, you know what, I'm going to do something that I have a little bit more control over, so that I can kind of predict what's going to happen down the line. You know, I don't have to go find that right property. I don't have to, you know, worry about what's happening with the other houses on the street. Like, we got screwed by a house that was a couple flips that were terrible that sold and killed our comps. And there's nothing I can do about that.
What would be your advice to somebody if they're looking to do fix and flips, just so they don't like lose a bunch of money?
Number one, you have to connect with a professional, you know, and that goes for anything. I mean, that's why I'm working with you guys, you know, I mean, because I need your professional expertise to do this thing right. And the same thing goes for real estate or anything else that you do. You want to get into the market, you have to go to a professional that knows what they're doing, so that they can teach you the tips and the tricks and the little things that you need to know, so that you're not figuring it all out when your money's on the line.
So how do you find, somebody might be wondering, how do you find that professional? Because I know they have these seminars where they do, hey, you can invest a bunch of money and you can learn the process. I would go right to the expert just doing it and try to get him as a mentor coach. How do you find that professional?
Yeah, well, first of all, full disclosure, I went to one of those seminars early on, and I drank their Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And I got about 2 weeks into it and said, give me my money back. Like, this isn't working.
Sure.
This isn't, that's not the professional that you want. The professional that you want is somebody that you may or may not know, but when you sit down with them, they can tell you everything that you need to know about the process very clearly and very concisely. This is what a good fix and flip property looks like. This is the areas that you're going to find them. Here's why this is going to work.
Yeah.
Here's the market data. I mean, they should have their numbers down, because if you don't have your numbers down on a fix and flip, a little tiny variation just costs you 10, 15 grand, you know?
What is the average return? So, like, not average return, let's look at this. If you're going to invest in a fix and flip, you're going to try to fix up and flip it.
Right.
What is the time frame for you getting your money back usually? If you're actually
if
working
you do
on the
right,
project.
I would say the best project, I got it back in about 3 months. The worst project, about 6 months.
And what, on average, what was it that you made on that 3 month, 6 month?
15
15
grand maybe. I mean, that one where we lost 30, you know, that kills your averages right there.
But
we also
you
had
learn.
We also had one where we made 80.
So that's the thing.
You know?
You're going to have wins and losses. And
Right.
people just look at the loss, and you took something away. I mean, I've had definitely a lot of experience where I've lost a lot of money, but I learned something. I looked at, okay, how can I use this to make money in the future? You probably learned a lot from that $30,000 mistake.
Absolutely. You know, and it really benefits my clients now that I work with, because I can look back at all of those mistakes that I made.
Yeah.
And they're like, what should I do to get my house ready for market? I'm going to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Do this instead and do that. Because now I know, like, here's where you can spend a little bit of money and get the biggest return on it.
That's the thing. Like, people got to look at, from their experiences, everything that happens to them, it happens for a reason. And that's your experience that you can take. I think when we were shooting the commercial yesterday, I was thinking, like, when Herb and I and other people, we've been filming for a few years now, and some of the things that we filmed and we never actually used when we were doing our own projects. And it was expensive. We learned a lot. But that experience is what allowed us to be able to work with you and create a commercial in a day.
Right.
But not many people would know how to do that because they didn't pay the price. They didn't have the experience to do that.
Yep.
So learn from your mistakes and move forward. So now you're doing real estate. You're selling houses. Do you normally work with buyer, seller, both sides, or?
Both sides. I'm actually pretty much 50-50 every
Yep.
year. Like I always think like I'm going to have like more of this or more of that or whatever. And at the end of the year, it's like 50-50 every year,
50-50.
which is great. That's exactly how I want it.
So there's a lot of real estate. I mean, there's so much. I don't know. Was there over 100,000 real estate agents in the Denver area? Probably 80,000.
No, I think there's like 20,000.
20,000.
Yeah.
There's still a lot.
A lot.
There's a lot of agents. What makes you different than every other agent out there? Because I heard people pour their heart out yesterday about how amazing you are. What is it that you do that makes you such a good real estate agent? Because there's aspiring real estate agents out there that are wondering, how do I be the best?
Yeah.
What is your advice?
So I think what sets me apart from everybody else is it's an attitude. I try to really focus on my client. I put them first. You know, what are they trying to accomplish? That's what my buddy did for me when I got into the fix and flip world. He wanted the commission and he wanted to get paid, but he also wanted me to succeed. And that was the most important thing to him. So he was telling me things based on me succeeding. That's how I look at my clients. When they succeed, I succeed. And I think that goes for anything, no matter what you're doing. Put the people who are your clientele or who you're serving, put them first. And the same thing goes for real estate. You can be a total jerk and not care about your clients at all and get after it and call on the phone and do this and do that and crush it in real estate. Absolutely. One and done on every single client.
Yep.
If you really get after it, you totally can. But that's not how I choose to run my business. I want to do repeat. I want to take care of people so that they send me referrals so that I can build my business organically from the ground up. So if you're looking to get into real estate, I think the number one thing is you got to figure out why. You know, why are you doing this? I'm doing this for lots of different reasons, and we can go down that rabbit hole as much as you want. But you know, ultimately, this is the best way that I feel I can serve my friends and family and community.
And
It's
build
through
wealth.
real estate.
I mean,
and build wealth.
you help people, and I really related to this, and you were somewhere else, and I was talking with one of your guests. I don't know. It was your former student.
Yeah,
and when I was in real estate for a very short period of time, but when I started, I was going door to door handing out business cards, and he said that you did the same thing, giving magnets.
Yeah.
And that person actually said to him, like, hey, here's this guy that came to my door. Well, that guy taught me. But those things that you did, see, here's the thing. The people that you go to and talk to, they may not be the one that buys a house or works with you, but they're going to tell somebody.
Yeah.
So referrals is big in real estate, and just giving that touch, going above and beyond, because when you create an experience for somebody, like you've created for people and they pour their heart, he like literally, Dan Gomer was the guy that did everything for me. He had my best interest in mind. And even Ann, who talked yesterday, I was just amazed. She's like, I'm single and I don't really have anybody give me advice on this. And he was like family. Having that is where people keep coming back to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And how cool is that? You know
It's
what
amazing.
I mean? That I get to, I'm a relationship builder. I'm not a realtor. Ultimately, I am a relationship builder. Almost all of my time is just talking to people. It's going to coffee, going to lunch, going to happy hour, making phone calls, seeing how people are doing, checking in, networking. You know, I spend a lot of time socializing, and for the goofy kid that, you know, doesn't even know how to dress growing up, you know, turning into this social butterfly, you know, it's just kind of crazy, but I love it. I love it, you know.
So let's transition as we get to the end here. A few questions, because I'm just curious here. What were 2 books that you read that made you think differently in a way that, hey, I can really do anything?
Okay, so the first book that I always recommend to everybody, it's called The Art of Letting Go. It's by Richard Rohr. Not necessarily so much an inspiring book, but a book that's all about put it into perspective.
Yep.
You know, and man, he touches on everything. He touches on money, religion, sex, everything. I mean, it's such a great book, and he's so poetic. Just the way that he talks about everything, that's definitely one of my favorite books. Oh man, there's so many other ones too. I like to read a lot of books that are inspiring to the soul. And I think that's ultimately what really made me turn the corner in my life from this person that's just constantly like beating myself up all the time to somebody who can see life for what it is and take that next step. And that's when things really started to turn for me. I mean, Wayne Dyer, Outwitting the Devil.
Brandon Point Hill, great one.
Yeah.
I'll transition. I got two other questions that are really going to go deep. So, lowest moment in your life. Lowest moment you think about where it's like, this life sucks. I am like at rock bottom.
Yep.
What happened and what was in your mind that made you flip the switch to go forward?
There's really only a handful of people that I've told this to up until now, but I've kind of started to get a little more open about it. There was definitely some times when I was younger, 13 to 20, where I had a lot of turmoil, and some, suicidal thoughts and things like that. And, ultimately I always overcame those, and they kind of went away. And I was probably 33, 34. I had 2 kids. And all of a sudden these thoughts started coming back. You're a failure. You're not doing what you should be doing. Like, what's wrong with you? And then you get into those doldrums, and then it's just like almost like a warm, fuzzy blanket to just be in this a shitty spot to be in. And I was laying in my bed one day, and I got up, and I was just like, you know what? You got a choice to make here. You can keep doing that BS, or you can move forward. But you have to make a decision today, one or the other. End it or move forward, and you're never looking back. And I was like, I've got 2 kids. Fuck that. I'm moving forward. And that was it. The light switch turned. I'll never go back to that spot. And my life took on a whole new meaning after that time.
That's amazing, because a lot of people, we all have our low moments, especially as an entrepreneur. It's an emotional roller coaster. I mean, entrepreneur, if you can say you don't cry, you're full of shit, because right. Moments where you cry, or you're like, how am I going to do this? But you can either think positive, negative. In Outwitting the Devil, I love that, because you have the positive, you have the devil side, the negative, or you have the positive thoughts. You can only pick one. I pick positive every time. So it's how you change how you think. Your thoughts become your things. The last question I go into is, if you were going to die tomorrow and you had your advice to give your family, your friends, everyone, what would be your best advice to give them to live a fulfilled life, whether to get wealth, just fulfillment, and just have a great life? What's your best advice?
Well, first of all, I love that question. I'm going to steal it for some of my interviews. I hope that's okay. Man, all right. Well, I think my advice would be to, I love the word contentment. Go find contentment, and I've talked about this in our series. Happiness is fleeting. People talk about, I want to be happy, I want to be happy. Well, you're happy as long as something cool is happening that makes you happy. You're going down a slide, then you're happy. You're going skiing, you're happy. But as soon as that's over, then it's back to the real world. Contentment is an inside job. That day that I decided I'm moving forward was the day that I began the journey to find contentment. And I can tell you right now, I have my down days. I have a client that I'm working with right now where, there's some challenging times, and I feel really bad for what's going on with them and stuff like that. So there's still these times where it's like, man, this is a tough moment, but I have the contentment in my heart, and I feel like what I'm doing now has meaning. And so I would tell my kids or my wife or whatever, I would say, you just need to go out and find something that fills your cup, and just do that every day. Serve the world, and that will come to you.
That I like that, and I love how you look at that, at contentment, and because it is a roller coaster, you're not always going to be on the highs, like the huge wins and stuff. And when you come down to the regular life, hey, be thankful for that and be content with it.
Yeah.
Because it will make you happier. Otherwise, people have these expectations. It's always going to be like that.
Right.
No, you're gonna, it's a roller coaster.
And that's the beautiful thing about
Yes.
being an entrepreneur. I mean, I have learned, here's the other thing that I've learned. I love, it's so weird, and until you experience it, you can't really put it into words, but, you know, I love the feeling of kind of getting punched in the gut. You know what I mean? Like
pain.
Yeah, like
Makes it glorious successes even better.
yeah. So you know, I have these moments, and I'm just like struggling, and then when I go back to, hey man, this is part of being human. Like, what's your opportunity here? What can you do with this to make yourself better? Because this is your moment. This is your moment to grow. What are you going to do with it? And when I start framing it that way, then you know, I get over it, and then I start looking forward again. And so, if I wasn't an entrepreneur, I'd be an entrepreneur, because there's no other way to challenge you like sink or swim.
Yeah, I love that, how you look at that, and it's so true as an entrepreneur. Like, the painful low moments are like what drive you to become more successful, but the up and down, if it was always great, what's the point? Like the worth of that. And it's been cool to see your journey from real teacher to real estate and flipping properties, and now doing video content, which you're doing great with your show and everything you're doing. I'm excited to see that come out. Thank you for coming on the show. Where, if people wanted to find your series or find everything you're doing or hire you as a real estate in the Denver area, where could they find you?
The best place to find me is you can find me on Facebook, on Instagram at Dan Gomer Home, or my website, dangomer.com. I'm very easy to track down. Just Google it.
Well, hey, thank you again.
Yes,
I appreciate
thank
it,
you.
Dan. For all of you listening, if you are in the Denver area, I highly suggest to check out this guy. He is taking video content to a whole new level. He's got a commercial that's coming out, and every client that I've seen literally pours their heart out on how great he is at what he does. So check out what he has at dangomer.com. And as always, you know what time it is. It is time to go out there, create something great, and become unforgettable, because life is too short not to. I'm Brendan C. Adams. Have a great day, everyone.